Hello devs, welcome to the Game Coffin. I'm Vance and indie game dev, and in this video we are going to see how we can move our player character in Unity using C# in three different ways. These methods can help you if you want to make a player for your game from scratch, or if you want to learn new methods to move your player in your game. So without any delay, let's get started. Now here you can see we are in Unity now, and I already made a player and some environment. The player is just a capsule with some materials on it, and the environment is just some cubes. I also make the main camera a child to our player, so when our player moves, the camera will follow it. So without any further delay, let's move to our first method, which is transform method. In transform method, we just change the values of the position from our player transform by the help of a script and some player inputs. So now first, let's make a folder for our scripts. Let's name it like script, and now make a script, C# script inside our scripts folder. Now call it like transform script or transform movement. Now let's open it. I'm using Visual Studio 2019. It will take some time to open. So now you can see our empty transform movement script. So first, we don't need the start point. So first delete it. Now let's make a value for our speed by which our player will move. Let's give it a value of 10. And now in update void, we will first take inputs from our player in form of floats. So Unity have its own input system that we can see in edit project settings and go in input manager. And you can see here the horizontal input, which is left and right, and the vertical input, which is up and down. So first let's take the horizontal input float, code it like her, simply write a code like that. Now take the vertical input, call it like var. Same for the vertical input. And one thing we need to keep in our mind that we need to provide the same name as it is in input manager. So here you can see for the horizontal input, it is called horizontal with capital H. And for vertical input, it is with capital B. Same here. Now let's move our player. So for that, simply write a code like that. So this line just take the player transform and move it in vector forward, which is our z axis with some speed called speed from the our vertical input, which is up and down. So when we press the up arrow, we will move forward, and down arrow we will move backward, and time dot delta time simply to move it in equal distance in equal frames. Same for horizontal. So here we will take the player transform, move it in vector right, which is positive x direction, with speed called speed, with horizontal input, which is left and right, and same multiply it with time dot delta time. Now everything is correct. Now we can save it, go back to Unity, wait for the script to compile. Now go to our player, assign this script to our player, and now we can see it has a speed of value 10. And if we hit play, press our arrow keys or WSD, we can move. Now let's move to our second method, which is rigid body method. In rigid body method, we'll move our player with a rigid body component. So for that, go in our player, add component, and type in rigid body. You can see a rigid body here. Inside that, we can see mass, gravity, drag, and other physics properties. So now let's make a script for our rigid body movement. call it rigid body movement. But in C sub, sorry, Visual Studio, we don't need the start method here also. So let's delete it, make a value for our speed. Now this time we are moving with some mass and gravity. So we need a large value for our speed. This time we will take a value like 500. And also we need a reference to our rigid body. So just type public rigid body, name it like player RB. And now take inputs like we take in our transform movement script. Now to move it, let's write some code. This line will take the rigid body of our player, add some force because it's a physics property. So it will add a force in forward direction, which z axis. The force will be a value of our speed. The input is vertical input and time to delta time to move it in equal direction in equal time frames. Now let's do for our horizontal input. Same for horizontal input. Player RB, which is our rigid body, add some force in vector right, which is x-axis. The value is equal to speed. The input will be the horizontal input, which is left and right, and time dot delta time to move it in equal direction in equal time frames. Now there is no issue. Now save it, go to Unity, wait for script to compile, go to our player and assign the rigid body script to our player. We can see the value of speed and rigid body, it is empty. So we'll take the player rigid body and assign it to it. And now if we hit play, press the arrow keys, we can see we are moving, but also we are rotating. So to get rid of that, go in the player rigid body, constraints, and in freeze rotation, tick all the axes. If we hit play, press the arrow keys, we can move with rigid body. Let's move to our third method, which is character controller method. In character controller method, we will move our player with character controller component. So for that, go to our player, add component, and type character controller. Here you can see some predefined character properties, and it has its own collider. So we will delete the capsule collider. Here you can see it has a collider. Now let's make a script for that. Call it character movement. Open it. Now we can see our character movement script here. First delete the start method because we don't need here also. Now let's make a value for our speed. We'll take the same value as transform movement. Now let's make a reference to our character controller component. Call it like player controller. Now in update void, we'll take the inputs in form of floats. Now let's write a code to move it. So for that, so this will take the character controller here and move it in vector forward, which is z with value of speed from the vertical inputs and time dot delta time to move it in equal distance in equal time frames. Now let's write same for the horizontal inputs. This will also take the player controller, move it in vector right, which is x-axis with value of speed from our horizontal input and time dot delta time to move it equal distance in equal time frames. So now there is no error. Let's save it. Go to Unity, wait for script to compile. To our player, give the script to our player. same as body. We'll assign the character controller here. If we hit play, press the arrow keys, we can move. Yeah. Hope this video helps you to learn something new. And if you want to know what's the difference between these methods, you can drop a comment below so you can get a video on the topic soon. Also, you can check our social medias from description and get updates from the developers of our current project. And also, you can subscribe the channel and hit the bell icon so you always get videos on new game dev topics. Thank you and see you soon in the next video.